I'm going to get started with the learning sponsors, and by then, hopefully, everybody will be in. And okay, Year of Learning, Friends of Herb Jeremiah, Tzvi Ben Zev, Friends of Sam Coleman, Shmuel Ben Yaakov, Friends of Gideon Lazinski, Mordechai Shlomo Ben Meir, Bella and David Adler, in memory of her father, Eliel Ben Yosef Kohen. Those were inspired by our Rebbetzin Emerita, Sheila Shapiro, Sarah Estamalka, Bat Meshulam Issachar, Gail and Leslie Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Mushka Sprinz, Bat Yosef Chaim Bakava, Hanan Ben Moshe Eliezer Vakana, Pesha Bat Shmuel Yitzchak Halevi V'Tzipora, Yisra Ben Yoel Moshe Cohen Vakana. Rexford Friends of Gladys Sherman, Gutta Bat Meir, Michael Klein and Friends of Judah Klein, Yehuda Tzvi Ben Chaim, Marsha Brana in memory of her husband, Rav Yerachmiel Ben Shmuel, Friends and family of Arthur Ritholtz, Mordechai Yudel Ben Baruch Leib HaKohen, Friends and family of Siggy Bessler, Shalom Shraga Ben Dov, Friends of Marvin Weinstein, Mordechai Ozer Ben Yisrael Aharon. A Month of Learning by Perry and Jill Meltzer. In memory of his mother, Malka Bat Baruch, and his sister, Golda Leah Bat David Halevi. Carol and Josh Sanborn. In memory of her father, Yehoshua Shia Ben Moshe Yehuda HaKohen. Ike and Evelyn Blachor, Hakarat Hatov for his continuous recovery from recent surgery. Rabbi Dr. Yankee and Malki Honig, in memory of his mother, Rabbanit Hensha Ita Bat Chaim Yehuda. Hannah and David Grunblatt, in memory of her mother, Roisa Bas Chaim. Jill and Perry Meltzer, in memory of her father, Yaakov Ben Yosef. B. Pizer, in memory of her stepfather, Avram Michal Ben Shmuel Halevi. B. Pizer again, in memory of her mother, Razel Bat Shammai. Jerry and Sharon Glassman, in memory of his mother, Malka Yehudis Bat Eliyahu. Henry Katz and children, in memory of his wife, Alila Leah Minsha Bat Yehuda. A Week of Learning by Michael and Judith Koretsky, in memory of his brother, Chaim Tzvi Ben Gershon. Judy Schiff, in memory of her mother, Chaya Chava Bat Menachem Mendel. Today is the 13th of the month. We have a Day of Learning by Carol and Paul Schwartz, in memory of her mother, Mima Bat Ze'eh. And Hashem is having Aliyah, Krank Rafia, Velti Yeshua Shem Latzliah, B'chol B'nai Yisrael, Good Gabenshtia. Okay. Okay, and I understand that the those involved in helping to plan the Siyum have indicated that we will tentatively be observing the Siyum for Baba Kama on the 29th of this month. Okay, which is 2 weeks from this Thursday. All right. Okay. So if you don't have a Baba Metzia already, now is the time to, if you feel you need to order one, okay, is the time to do so. Right. Okay. All right. Okay, we are on Kaf Gimel 103, 103A1, depending on what text you're using, right? Right. All right, so we're going to start just as a quick review, and then when we finish, on the bottom, we were dealing with the question of whether the agent of an individual, okay, depending on the language the agent uses, whether it's going to be required, again, a second sale, the part of the agent, okay, because if the agent buys the land and says almanat, the Gemara tells us it's very clear that they are acting clearly as the agent and therefore purchasing the property for the investor. If they don't say almanat, the Gemara seemed to indicate that that was a problem because then it could be perceived that the agent is actually purchasing the land for oneself, okay? And then the necessity for a second go around with another sale, okay? And we get a little story there at the very bottom of the previous Amud, okay? And regarding the example of the purchase of the land and the Reish Galuta is involved. Okay, halokech sadeh b'shem chavero. Okay, and on the top of Kaf Gimel, ein kofin et hamocher lemkor zimna acharite. We don't force the purchaser, right, to the one who was the agent, really, to sell a second time. V'mamalo almanat kofin et hamocher lemkor. That's where we stopped yesterday. Okay, so we're on the third line in the Amud, okay, on the top, Amar Mar, okay, so we get the following statement. One who is acting as an agent and purchases the land in the name of his friend, colleague, etc. Okay, Ein kofin et hamocher lemkor zimna achariti. So we say we don't force the seller to sell the land another time. Pshita, isn't that obvious, says the Gemara. Mahu detema, okay? Why, what is it coming to you want to tell us? Matse amale, because the person can come and say the following, Meda yadat da'ana lenafshai. Sure. Okay? It should be well known that what I'm doing is taking the land for myself. Okay? And what happens? Panchaya, okay, and therefore what happens? Okay, Ba'almahu de Kavanai. Okay, and that it was a sense of protection that I, so to speak, negotiated by using the name of the investor or the Reish Galuta in the case that we saw. Okay, and that was what his intent was. V'zuzeh b'kdei lo shadina. Okay, and I'm not going to spend the money. Okay, I'm not spending idle money. I'm not just throwing out the money. Ela adata de katavle shtara achrina, but rather on the knowledge that the seller would have to, okay, that would have to write a second bill of sale, another document. Kamash Malan, okay, comes to tell us the way that he says to him, Inyana avdelach, okay, I did this sale, this item for you, right? Bahade hahu dezavatle vishmei, okay, that in this case you sold it, okay, in his name. Vayichtov lach shtara achrina, okay, and therefore we'd write another document, right? Right? Ve'im amarlo almanat. Okay, but the implication is, but had he said, the agent said to the person in the negotiations on the condition, okay, in other words, implying that very clearly he was only acting as a agent for either, in the case we saw, the Reish Galuta or some other investor to purchase the money, kofin et hamocher limkor. Then they can force the seller, okay, to sell it a second time. Right? Pshita, that seems obvious. Lo tzricha, no, we needed to clarify this and define it. Why? Damar laho l'sahadeh kame dideh. Okay, why? Because he was saying it, okay, before the witnesses. It was this, that's what he was telling them. Chazu d'shtara achrina kame ba'ena. Okay, that therefore they would be able to see, the witnesses, that another document is going to be necessary. Mahu detema. So then what are you telling us? Matse amarle, because he could come and say to us the following, Meda yadat da'ana lenafshai. Okay, that the person can come and say to us the following, okay, that Amina shtara meheach, okay, that I need a document from this one. The kashakalt b'shemei kamart. Why? Because you could say that I took it in my name. Kamashmalan comes to teach us, right? The Amarle, that what he said to him was, Lahachi tarche. For this I made all this effort, okay? Va'amre laho la'edim kamach, okay? And I said this before these witnesses and before you, the minach hu dekaba'ena, okay? That from you, this is what I needed. In other words, why go to all the trouble to tell the seller and try to tell the witnesses all this information, okay, if it wasn't that, okay, if he was simply buying it for himself as opposed to buying it for the investor.
Is aware of this transaction?
Well, the Reish Galusa could very well have informed him, I need this piece of property purchased for the community, let's say. Okay? So by saying, I'm purchasing this on behalf of the Reish Galusa, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's buying it for him personally. Okay? But nevertheless, he could say that as part of the, okay, negotiation, as part of the purchase discussion.
Selling proof?
That the person selling the land has to be aware whether the individual with whom he's negotiating is negotiating to purchase the land for himself or acting as an agent for somebody else. Well, it's clarified, because then if he's acting as an agent, okay, it could mean that, okay, that one bill of sale is sufficient, okay? But if he's buying it for himself, okay, then when the investor comes and says, oh, what happened to my land? Then you'd need another document, another bill of sale. Okay? Right.
To somebody else.
Exactly. Okay, now we get to a new piece in the Gemara. Rav Kahana, Yahav Zuze Bitna. Okay, Akitna. I'm sorry. Okay, so Rav Kahana had paid money out for the purchase of flax. Lasof Yaker Kitna. Eventually, the value of the flax increased. Right, Zavne. But what he did is he left the flax in the hands of the seller, because the Gemara is telling us what happened. Okay, Zavne mirvate, okay, that the seller, therefore, what did he do? He sold that flax, which he had earlier sold to Rav Kahana, thinking that now, since the price went up, okay, I'll sell it and I'll give the total amount of money with the profit to Rav Kahana. That was his.
He was doing him a favor.
He thought he was doing him a favor.
Collecting interest.
Okay. So what happens? So Rav Kahana, okay, therefore has a problem with this situation. Okay. Since he didn't take actual possession of the flax. Okay. Because notice, all right, Zavne Mervate the Katana, Atalakame, okay, the Rav. He came before Rav and asked him, what's the situation? Amarli, Ma'avid, what should I do? Namely, Azil Ishkol Zuzi. Shall I come and receive the money? Okay, what's the problem? Okay, I Amarle, so Rav answers him, I Zavne Amre Hai Hitna de Kahanaho. If when he sold it, okay, he had said, this is the flax that belongs to Kahana, and that's what I'm selling you, okay? Zil Shakil, go and you can then take the money. Ve'ilo, okay, but if he didn't say that, okay, Lo tishkol. Then you can't take the money. Why? Because it looks like he's gaining interest exactly on that item. Okay? So what happens, Kiman? According to whom is this? Kivnei Ma'arava Da'amrei. This is like the sages in Eretz Yisrael. Because what are they saying? Mi hodi'o lebal chitin. Who is it that informs the owner of the wheat, sheyikneh chitin lebal ma'ot, that the purchase of this wheat should be done and arranged with the person who is has the money, okay, who's the investor. Atu miyahiv Rav Kahana arba v'shakil tamne. Okay, since what do we have in this situation? Can we say that Rav Kahana can go and where he gave 4, in other words, let's say 4 dinar per kav or whatever, all right, v'shakil tamne, and then he should be getting 8, okay? Hitna mimelehu de'egaka. We might argue that the flax on its own happened to be increased in value. Okay? Migzo gazelu. All right? So would we consider that, okay, a situation as if it was robbery? Okay?
It says this is Rav Kahana who is selling it for Rav Kahana.
Exactly. He's an agent for Rav Kahana in that situation. Okay, there would be no interest. Exactly. Right? Utnan. But aren't we taught? So now the Gemara is going to say, wait a second. All right, maybe we can look at this from a different perspective. Because if we say, okay, that Rav Kahana had paid him for the flax, okay, and then he went ahead and sold it without Rav Kahana's awareness or acknowledgement, maybe that individual, okay, who was the original seller, was actually stealing that flax from Rav Kahana and is guilty of robbery. And what do we say then that the robber must do? He must either return the item or pay it at the rate of what it was worth when it was stolen. Okay? So that's
fair amount.
Okay, which would be the higher amount, and which therefore it would not be interest. Exactly. So it's utnan. And therefore we learn, however, that we've learned in a previous Mishnah. Kol hagazlanim mishalmim b'kishas gazela. Okay, and therefore Rav Kana would still be able to accept the money in that situation because it would not, as we said, be interest. It would simply be the former original owner, I'm going to say, selling it, okay, who theoretically stole it, and now that's the situation. Okay? So Amre, so let us say as follows, Hatam Amanahave. No, we're dealing here with a situation of trust, says the Gemara. Velo mashche Rav Kahana Lakitna. Why? Because Rav Kahana never did Mashiach, he never took actual possession of the flax into his, let's say, domain, into his property. V'Rav l'ta'ameh. And Rav then was really following his line of thinking, his perspective, Da'amar Rav, as Rav has taught elsewhere. Osin amana b'perot. One may make a trust arrangement in regards to produce, right? Ve'ein osin amana b'damim. But we do not make a trust arrangement in regards to money. Okay? In other words, fine, it's very possible that you could not take all that produce from wherever it was stored by the original owner or still out in the field even, perhaps, okay, to your domain. But money, normally one would take and handle it directly. Okay? All right, we now get to a new Mishnah. Okay, are we doing okay? All right, so our new Mishnah. Hagozel et chavero, okay, shava pruta, v'nishbalo. Okay? So we have a situation where an individual steals from his neighbor, his colleague, something that's worth at least a pruta. And remember, a pruta is a minimal amount of money, but nevertheless, what happens? Vinishbalo. And he has taken an oath. And in that oath, he's sworn falsely. Okay? So that's going to be our part of our problem. Yolichenu acharav lemadai, that in order to fulfill the requirement of the Torah that says that he must either return the stolen object or pay the money, okay, to the individual directly, he must follow, says the Mishnah, even if it means traveling halfway around the world, so to speak. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, if the Mishnah is going to come back to that. All right, good question. Lo yitain lo lebano v'lo l'shlucho. He cannot, the person who swore falsely in regards to the robbery, cannot give it to the son of the person who suffered the loss, v'lo l'shlucho, nor to his agent. Right? Aval noten l'shliach beit din, but they could give it to a representative of the court, okay, who would act therefore on the back for the welfare of the individual. So what happens, says our Mishnah, continuing, v'im mate, okay, and if the person who suffered the robbery dies, yachzir yorsho, okay, when he can, then he returns it to his heirs. Natan lo et keren, right? What happens now? Here's where we're going to get to the requirement. Okay, let's say he returned the principal, the basic amount of money, v'lo natan lo et hachomesh, but he did not pay the knas, okay, the penalty that's added to that robbery. Okay, right? What happens? A fifth, right? Machalo al hakeren. Let's say the person who was robbed forgives the amount of money that was the principal. Okay, v'lo machalo et hachomesh, but did not forgive the penalty amount of money, the chomesh. Or let's say the following: machalo al zeh v'al zeh, that the person who suffered the robbery forgives both the keren, the basic amount of money, and the penalty amount, right? Right? Okay. Chutz mi pachot shave pruta b'keren, or say there was less, okay, than even a pruta in the main amount. Eino tzarich lelech acharav. Then in those situations, it would appear that the robber does not have to follow and give back that money wherever. Well, if the person who was robbed forgives,
when is it not considered?
the issue is not just the theft. The issue is that the person also swore falsely. That's part of the issue. And right, we're going to get to that exactly. What? Okay, the question is shava pruta. If it's shava pruta or more, then certainly it's a theft. If it's left, it may not be considered a theft.
And then swear falsely if it's not a theft.
Depends. Okay. The question is, but nevertheless, the assumption of the Mishnah is that he swore falsely. Okay. And as Avrami has pointed out, so it's not only does he have to return the money, ideally, pay the penalty, but ultimately we're going to see he has to bring a korban. Okay? Now, what happens? Okay, our Mishnah doesn't end here, though. Okay? Because we see it continues on even here into the next Amud. Natan lo et chomesh, v'lo natan lo et keren. Say the robber pays the penalty amount, right? But he didn't pay the principal. Okay? Machalo al hachomesh. He was forgiven about the penalty amount, the fifth. V'lo machalo ala keren, but he was not forgiven by the person robbed on the principal amount. Machalo al zeh ve'al zeh, chutz mishava pruta b'keren. Okay, he forgave him both on the major amount or a significant amount of the principal and the penalty amount of chomesh, with the exception of shava pruta b'keren, except with that small amount in the principal. What happens? Tzarich leilech acharav. He still then in those situations must go and make reparations, and we're going to see also in a moment about a korban. Again, says the Mishnah, another example. Natan lo et hakeren v'nishbalo al hachomesh. Okay, that he returned and paid the principal amount, and he took the vow falsely again regarding the 1/5 amount, the knas. Let's go to the top of the new Amud. Harei zem mishalem chomesh al chomesh. Okay, he must pay a 5th on top of the earlier 5th. Okay, a knas on the knas. Okay, in this situation, al chomesh ad sheyitma'et hakeren mishava pruta, until the amount of money, okay, is less in the principle is less than a shava pruta. Okay, and so the Mishnah continues, v'chein b'pikadon, and likewise, excuse me, we're talking about a deposit. Shinamar, as the pasuk tells us, o b'pikadon, o b'tzumet yad, whether a deposit or a pledge, o b'gezel, or in regards to thievery, robbery, o asa et amito, okay, or he did ashak, I'm sorry, at amito, or he dealt, okay, he defrauded, let's say, his friend, o matza aveda, or he found a lost object, v'kichash bo, that he deals falsely with it or negates it, v'nishba al sheker, and he swore falsely. Harei ze mishalem keren v'chomesh ve'asham. So here the Mishnah finishes and says, not only must he pay the principal, pay the knas of 1/5, but must bring a asham offering. Okay? Okay. I'd have to go back and double check, all right, to be honest. Okay? Okay. If I remember correctly, it may have to depend on the animal. Okay, that on a lamb, you would.
If you receive something.
Well, the Torah also spells it out with animals. You pay 2 times and says, right, and then you pay twice that again and more. Okay? Right, if your student's right. Right, if no, in other words, he's not until he takes the vow correctly. Right. Right. But the Karen will hold back the kapah. Right. 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 Okay. All right. So the Gemara wants to pick up Nishbalo. He swore him. And yes, lo Nishbalo, lo. If he didn't swear falsely, no. Lo, no. Mani, according to whom? So now we're going to see, as the Gemara continues, who might we say that this Mishnah follows? Okay, and we're going to present 2 of the sages, Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva, present where they each stand. Okay, in other words, what their statements are. And can we say, do we get it from this one? Do we get it from this one? Okay, and if we don't get it from either one of them, who do we get it from? But then we'll come back and say, well, maybe we can say it comes from so-and-so, right? That's, all right, so let's go on. Lo Rabbi Tarfon velo Rabbi Akiva. Therefore, our Mishnah doesn't seem to follow the perspective of either Rabbi Tarfon or Rabbi Akiva. Why? Tanya, because we have a Braita that tells us, Gazal echad michamisha, if an individual stole from one of 5 people, ve'eno yodea ezameha, and he does not know for sure from which one he stole, the kol echad omer oti gazal, and each of the 5 people say, no, I was the one he stole it from, right? What happens? Maniach zela benehem. This is the Braita saying one puts the stolen material among them, umistalek, and then he takes off. Exactly. Divrei Rabbi Tarfon. That Braita seems to be the view of Rabbi Tarfon. Oh, it doesn't say. Doesn't say. Let's go on. Rabbi Akiva says, and where? Lo zo derech mosiato midei avera. That's not the way for him to take care of his sin. All right? Ad she yishalem zela lekol echad ve'echad. No, the robber has to pay the amount, the value to each one of the 5. Okay? Money, according to whom is that? Rabbi Tarfon. If we say that's the view, okay, of Rabbi Afal Gav, the Ishtabeya, even though the person may have taken an oath, right? Amar maniach zela beinehem u'mistalek. Rabbi Tarfon still says, despite the oath, he has to put the stolen objects or material among them, and then he can walk. Rabbi Akiva. Not even to the victim, just puts it there and hightails it. Okay? Rabbi Akiva. But if it's the view of Rabbi Akiva, Afal Gav Delo Ishtabeya, even though he may not have sworn, okay? Amar Ad Yishalem Gzela Lekol Echad V'Echad. He argues, no, he must pay back since he doesn't know which individual specifically he stole from. He must pay that value of the stolen items to each and every one of them. Okay? So the Gemara tries to say, Le'olam Rabbi Akiva. This seems then to say that originally statement, our Mishnah seems to may follow the view of Rabbi Akiva. V'chi ka'amar Rabbi Akiva ad sheyishalem gzela lekol echad v'echad. Because when Rabbi Akiva says he must pay back each individual, right? Heicha de ishtabeahu. Okay? De ka'amar. It's a situation when, therefore, it must be when the person